I am dead ass looking forward to being done with this. Am I recording properly? Okay. I've been doing DoorDash the whole day. There's a promo for complete 15 deliveries by Sunday and get 75 bucks. So free money, not free, but you get the idea. I got me some McDonald's on the way home. I got pizza. I get even hungrier. I'm proud of myself today, man. I'm proud of myself. I'm working on the app a lot too, so I know I haven't posted a video on that in a while. But it's looking. I got the link connected, sign in, sign out connected. The back end stores tokens and items, so I can actually fetch data. Let me shut that off. Otherwise, it'll just infinitely check for stuff. But this video is about string problems, as they have been for the last week. So today we have count binary substrings. Okay, given a binary string S, return the number of non-empty substrings that have the same number of zeros and ones, and all the zeros and all the ones in these substrings are grouped consecutively. Substrings that occur multiple times are counted the number of times they occur. Wow. So our goal is to output the number of times these conditions are met, the number of times we find these substrings. So let me write down some of these notes. It said given a string S, like 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, our response to this would be 6. And why 6? Because we have, why 6? So it said non-empty substrings that have the same number of zeros and ones, and all the zeros and all the ones are consecutive. So we have the first 0, 0, 1, 1, and the second 0, 0, 1, 1. That's 2. We have the inner 0, 1. We have the inner 0, 1. That's 4. And then we have, no, the bigger one's not it. Is it zeros and ones? So it said 0, 1, 1. It said 0, 0, 1. What did they say? They said 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0. Didn't even see that one. The 1, 0, didn't see that one either. The other 0, 1, 1, and the 0, 1. So I got the 2 0, 0, 1, 1s and the 2 0, 1s, but I didn't see the 1, 1, 0, 0 or the 0, 1 or the 1, 0. And that's 6. That's the number of, I guess, consecutive binary substrings. Okay. So as we're iterating over the string, as we do with string problems, what are the conditions we're checking for, right? We're checking for if we have a 0 followed by another 0, we can either have another 0 or 1, and we only count it if we see the same number of ones that we saw in zeros. So if for example, we see 0, 0, and then we see a 1 and we see a 0, don't count that. Wow, this is crazy. So how do we start this, right? Because 1, 0 is an option, right? Because there's a 0, 1 in the 0, 0, 1. Recursion? I kind of want recursion. This was like a sliding window problem slightly, because the window looks like, is there a reason to shrink the window? If the number of zeros and ones is not balanced. So let's say we're counting, right? Let's say we have a 0 count, we have a 1 count, right? A 1 count. And they start off at 0. Once we have a 0 count, we add the 1, then we add the 2, we make it 2, then we have a 1, then we have a 2. So that counts. If at any point they're unbalanced, then shrink the window, right? So at that point, we added a 0. That's a 3. We shrink this. So we reduce that down to 2. So our window was 0, 0, 1, 1. That counts, right? So that's an output count of 1. We then add the third 0 at index 4, and we say now cut the first one out because we're unbalanced. These zeros and ones are not consecutive, so even though we're balanced, being balanced is not enough to say being balanced is not enough. They have to be in the same order. So what does that mean? When I think of order, I think stacks. I think stacks are like about recency. So if we put a 0 on the stack and a 0 on the stack, we have 2 zeros on the stack consecutive, right? If we put a 1 on the stack, that's fine. I guess that's okay. We pop another 1 on the stack. Okay. So what are the conditions for popping something on the stack? I didn't put a freaking timer. I'll give myself 20 minutes. This one I feel is going to be a little harder. Let me just do 20-minute timer real quick. Am I recording properly? I feel like I just hit record. I didn't check anything. Yeah? Okay. Cool. So I took off the pop filter on my mic. Hopefully it doesn't sound too nuts. Not code. This code. So, I mean, if we use a stack, how does that help us? Well, we know that if we do a 0 and a 0 consecutive, if we don't, we can always clear out the stack because it's not valid. That was a weird face to make, but because there's a thing within it, if that makes sense. So I think Windows kind of makes sense. Like if I can make the window thing work, I think this is fine. I think Windows are gonna make sense here, but I'm not too sure. Maybe it's too complicated. Sliding window on this, right? But no, okay. So we count the 0. Say 0 is 1 0 2 0, 1 1 another 1. So while we're creating this, right? What are the conditions that make up a valid binary substring? If we have same ones and zeros and consecutive ones and zeros. So the same ones and zeros can be tracked by a counter. So if we're iterating over, we're trying to create our window. We're going to grow the window, and we're going to say, okay, we have 2 zeros, we have 2 ones eventually. We know this is eligible, but how do we check? Because this is about matching ones and zeros. So how do we check the consecutiveness? I mean, what would make it invalid, right? If we had a 0, 0, 1, and then a 0, the 1 count wouldn't even matter because we would be at 3, this would be at 1. Well, we want the same number of them, and we want them consecutive. So we know to close our window if we're unbalanced or if we're balanced but not consecutive. Does that make sense? We know to shrink the window. So if our start points to 0, our end points to 0, we increase the window, start and end. 0, 0, that's now a 2, that's okay. We add a 1. I'm trying to think of the logic that would tell us whether or not we're consecutive. So because we have 2 zeros, we can have as many zeros as we want, so long as we're followed by the same number of ones, right? And we shrink the window. We shrink the window if the next digit in the string is not the previous. We keep growing this. Well, that's not even true. Okay. So we're looking for two ones. If we have two zeros in the window, we're looking for two ones. That's okay. So adding a one is fine because it's less than the count of zeros. And adding another one is okay, right? But if we're checking for also consecutiveness, it's okay to do a counter and then say, okay, we have equal numbers here. So once we're unbalanced, right? This is a 3. If we just had a 1, we know this is already invalid. So shrink this. So now we've got only 2 zeros in our window, right? Now, this is equal, but they're not consecutive. So we need like what, like a flag? Like a consecutive flag, right? Which is always going to be false. And we only set it true if by some logic we know that we've encountered a 0, 0 and a 1, 1. So let's start out again. We add a 0, we add a 0. That's okay because they're the same. Because let's say we're keeping track of like some kind of prev, right? So prev, prev gets the first, I guess. So we'll say like s at 0, if s is even like a valid string. So let's start over again. So our consecutive points to false. We're then saying, okay, increase our window. We start out with 1, 0 in the window, and we don't want to shrink it yet. Our shrink conditions are consecutive false. Oh. So I guess we're saying if non-consecutive, right? We want to shrink. So if non-consecutive, which would be, how do we know it's non-consecutive? Is that true for now? We need something to tell us when to shrink the window. We shrink the window when we're no longer consecutive, right? Okay. We're gonna have to use prev and the count of zeros, right? We're gonna have to use prev and the count of zeros. I need water. I haven't drank water in hours. So if our count of 0 is 1 and our prev points to 0, cool. If our count of 0 is 2 and our prev points to 0, cool. If our count of 0 is greater than the count of 1s and our prev is not equal to it, that's fine. Just increment that. And our prev is a 1, it's the same, right? We updated prev because it's now different, but it's still less than the count of zeros. Cool. So consecutive as a flag wasn't triggered. The flag is if we're unbalanced and we're growing to get balanced, then we're okay. But as soon as we're unbalanced and we're not growing to get balanced, we have to shrink the window. We have to shrink the window. Which means so for example, we're gonna keep growing the window, we'll increment our end, and then in the loop for incrementing start, we'll do some logic to, I guess, create a count of some kind. And then we'll have to do something fancy here. So we'll say like if what are the conditions in English? If the letter we just added to our window is not equal to the previous number, and we're not trying to get balanced, then we've lost. So what does that mean? That means that if, we'll say like cur, we'll keep cur somewhere. If end or cur not equal to prev, and count of zeros equals the count of ones. That's the condition. If the number we just added, well, that's not even valid. Because if we add it, it's going to increment the count. Oh, God. Don't give up. Don't give up. Kind of a cool problem, though. Am I overdoing it? I could be over. There's a hint. I'm not using a hint. Never use hints. NVIDIA does this, and Goldman Sachs. This is not a very popular problem. Not really. But 11 Goldman Sachs interviews? People interviews? That's crazy. Okay. If our zero count is not equal, and the number we just added is not prev, does that make sense? I'm trying to make sure it doesn't get triggered too early. Not just not equal, but if like, I guess we have like an ahead. So the ahead is still the zeros, because we started with a 0. I'm getting off track here. Am I? Am I getting off track? I don't want to call it in. I don't know. So let's say we abandon the window. Right? The window feels like it makes sense here, right? I mean, we kind of just need a function as we're looping over. We need a function to check whether it's a valid substring. That's basically it. Like, without getting too crazy, we just need a function that can run to check a valid substring, and eventually, like helper functions, like if valid substring increment our answer by 1. So how do you validate the substring? You look at the digits, you say, okay, if we have a 0, there's no 1, so can't do it. We have 2 zeros, no 1s, can't do it. We have a 0, 0, and a 1, doesn't matter, can't do it. We have a 0, 0, 1, 1, okay, that's valid. So it spits back out what? It'll move the start and end. I don't know, this is weird. It's getting weird, man. Getting weird, man. I want to call it. Let's just call it. I don't know. Let's call it. I don't know. You have hints? They have 1 hint. How many exist here? 3. 111. 1101. Oh, no way. Is it a count of like 1s and 0s? That's stupid. One, 0. Oh. There's 5, but there's 2. Is it a floor division? 111 is valid. That's 1. 11 is 2. 01 is 3. 10 is 4. 1100 is 5. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 divided by what? 8 digits. 8 divided by... Yeah, what could you 5? It's not division. I don't know. Solution, please. LeetCode solution? Yes. Group by character. Accepted. Okay, I have 2. Linear scan. That's it. All right, group by character. We can convert a string S into an array groups that represent the length of the same character continuous blocks. For example, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. For every binary string in the form or 1 times k, the middle of the string must occur between 2 groups. Let's try to count the number of valid binary strings, group I and group I plus 1. If we have groups I equal 2 and group I plus 1 equals 3, that represents either 00111 or 1100. We can clearly make min of group valid strings with this string because the binary digits on the left or right of this must change. Oh, therefore we only have, okay. Just said what? Convert the string to an array of groups. 2 groups, 3 grouped, 4 grouped, and 5 grouped. Let's create groups and find above. Our first element S belongs in its own group. From then on, each element either does not match the previous element, and the group is as 1. Oh. So it doesn't match the prev, then we know that we have to do, okay. What's X range? You can do less comprehension. Using getter tools. Then they say, that's crazy. Linear scan. We can amend our approach 1 to calculate the answer on the fly. Instead of storing groups, we remember only prev groups minus 2 and cur groups minus 1. Then the answer will sum of min prev curve over each different final prev curve we see. Answer prev cur. Answer 0. Prev is 0. Cur is 1. For I in X range 1, if I minus 1 equal to S of Fy. So the first one equals to the second. Answer plus min of prev and cur. I gotta re-review that. I'm also really tired, so I gotta re-review this later. I'm not gonna consider this done. I'm gonna re-review it. Actually, I will. But I gotta come back at the end of the week and take a look at it. I don't know. This one didn't really make much sense to me. I gotta take a look. I will submit a valid. Ooh. Yeah, these X-ray for some reason. It's Python 2. Crazy bastards. Alright, well. Still an upload. I just need to come back later this week and try to figure out what the hell I was thinking.